Howdy ho.
Neighborinos.
I was going to say I swear, but I decided we don't need to be swearing on this podcast anymore.
Whoa.
Never again shall we swear and be crass.
And that, folks, is the last episode of the Drunken Pen Writing Podcast.
Now we will be the Lovin' Jesus Guys podcast, I guess.
No.
No? You don't want to love Jesus? You don't want to love the Lord? Your Lord and Savior? You know what, Spencer?
That's gay.
Whoa. Well, it is the month to be gay. You know what? I almost completely forgot about this. I don't know how. It was just over the weekend. So, folks, in the old Pittsburgh area, the Spencer and I went to a Comic-Con. It was the Three Rivers Con at the big convention center, and it was an all right time. But to double up our pleasure, they had the art festival also in Pittsburgh, and you know what that means? Also gay pride weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow, we did not find... This was weird, because we went outside like 50 times.
Yeah, we was almost outside more than we were inside the convention.
Yeah, because Spencer decided he had to get a commission that took 18 hours to accomplish. So we had a lot of downtime to kill. So we were walking around the cultural district of Pittsburgh, walking through the art festival, which was huge this year. I was like, holy fuck. I guess COVID's not real anymore.
Multiple blocks.
Yeah, multiple blocks. And then... Like, we walked through all that and stuff, and we would see the occasional pride flag and everything. And I've been to the pride thing before in it, where it's like...
Yeah, you were talking it up all big.
Well, I was just like, holy shit. Like, you want to talk about, like, some extreme gayness. There was a lot of gay pride there, and I was like, this is interesting. And this time, we didn't find it.
No, not... I mean...
Like I said, we saw some gay people and the gay pride supporters and all that stuff walking through the art festival, but like, we walked end to end of the art festival, but we could not find where the actual pride events were going on, because what we were in, that was just the art festival. That's a separate thing, because when I went to it before, when they had like the pride festival going on, you had the art festival just like that, was in a little bit of a different area. And then once you got to the end of kind of like how we're like the cocktail booths and stuff, where you know how like the blockade. Once you got past that, you'd walk, and then it was just like a completely different festival, just like all the gay stuff. And I was like, oh, that's cool. But we never found it. I don't know where the fuck it was, because we were in a different area, so it just went into like downtown main road. So I don't know. We just didn't look hard enough, I guess. But I didn't feel like crossing main areas of Pittsburgh. But I think like the Pride Festival usually is downtown, and I think we were still just a little bit north of that, maybe, or I don't know. Pittsburgh's laid out weird. But anyway, it was a really fun time.
Yeah, like, what is north, south, east? Like?
Yeah, it's like a fucking half an island. I don't even know. It's surrounded by rivers. So we didn't get our pride on, unfortunately. Not in the way we wanted to.
No. I
want Spencer to really experience the Pride Festival, because you see some, this is going to be harsh to say, grossness. You see some gross things. And I'm not talking about just gay people doing gay things. I'm talking about, like, things you don't want anybody to, like, picture two elderly people having sex in the street. You wouldn't want to watch that, would you?
No.
Because...
It doesn't matter if they're straight or gay or...
Because the elderly people are not attractive to you. Because for most people, you don't find elderly people attractive. Well, a lot of these folks that are getting very intimate in the streets of the Pride Festival are also just not... Like, they're the people you don't want to see doing that. It's never like the stereotypical hot gay guys or hot lesbians doing stuff. It's always like the... You know, like the people we would see it like at the comic book festival, but they were just humping each other, and you'd be like, "Oh, that's no good." So that was our weekend trip, and it was all right.
I liked it. We did get to see somebody wearing a Nicolas Cage face T-shirt.
That was interesting.
Which was great.
Multiple times we saw. I'm assuming it was the same guy.
I was now thinking about it, I wish I would have went up to him and just been like, "How much for the shirt?
Give me the shirt, buddy.
How much for your shirt, friend?"
You were so enthralled by the shirt, you didn't even realize that was Nicolas Cage wearing it.
Right.
It could have been.
It could have been. That's actually would probably be like an awesome cover for him.
Yeah. The only downside of the art festival and all that stuff was I ended up spending like all my money that I wanted to spend on stuff at the con, and then when we got to the art festival, they had way cooler art that I would have liked to buy. So that was the only downside, and the fact that we didn't get to see the fucking gay festivities. I was like,
we did not. Yeah,
because I had a lot of fun last time I went to that, because like everyone's obviously very friendly, but just like you see things you don't normally see. I mean, you got a taste of it. You saw like a guy walking a girl on a leash or something. But,
yeah.
Usually it's like so much weird, because what people don't realize is a lot of people will tag on to the gay pride stuff. So it'll be like, oh yeah, just a celebration of the LGBTQ plus community. No, you also get like the furries. They just add on to that. You get the fucking people that are just like going around taking pictures of feet when no one's looking. You get those. Like you get a lot of weird guys going into that, and that's really fun to witness from a distance. As long as they're not taking pictures of your feet or sniffing you from behind or anything like that. But that's what's weird. Is like just because it's a pride festival doesn't mean it's just all you can fuck buffet. It's not supposed to be like this public get naked and do weird shit. Like it might to a degree be a celebration of your sexuality, but it's not a celebration of sex. Like that's a different thing. So I don't know why.
That's like Rome shit. Man.
Yeah.
Like,
No, don't get me wrong. The debauchery, like most people, they know how to behave. They're not just doing weird shit to do it. But it's just like the 5 or 10% of the people that go there just go too hard, man. They're a little too free with their freak flags for public consumption. If you want to do that in, just even indoors somewhere, like just have like one of the bars or something. Hey, this is where we're going to get real fucking weird. Like you could do that, but when you're like walking dudes and ladies on harnesses and balls are hanging out and you can see like shit stains on the back of the leather leotards, like that's probably a little too much. But anyway, if you folks are ever in the Pittsburgh area during Pride Month, I would highly recommend checking that out. Hopefully you find it, because the parking sucks. That's the problem with Pittsburgh. We couldn't drive to go find it. You have to just walk everywhere, and it's like it's hot. So hot. It's always really hot during Pride. But anyway, and Three Rivers Con, that's always a good convention. So, double whammy. We had a triple whammy because we had Dog Festival, too. It was all fun. Yeah. It was better than the one we went to, the one convention where it was just like Picklesburg. Unless you're really into pickles, you're not going to. I mean, this was a different kind of pickles we saw this time, but it's not the same. You are listening to the Drunken podcast. I am your host. And then, like the last part of that, the noise was like a little too chipmunky or something. I am your host, Caleb James. Now I'm gonna let you pick which one you like, because this could be
Are you gonna say them both, or is it?
I'm gonna say them both, and you can pick the one that you would prefer for your OnlyFans, of course.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Spencer, the Billings Backbreaker Church.
Ooh.
Alternate. Billings Backbuster.
Ooh.
I'm thinking like pro wrestling would be more the backbreaker, or maybe comic book esque more, but the backbuster sounds more.
The backbuster. I kind of
see, but the backbuster almost has backbreaker too. I guess has almost the double entendre. I'm gonna bust your back. Like you get with the lady. Usually it's like blowing out your back, but you know what? Whatever.
See, I immediately went to the wrestling of just like pound bomb motherfuckers.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Just fucking the old spine buster power bomb kind of thing. So we don't have a topic today. Spencer didn't want to come up with one, so we're gonna talk about butts.
I'm useless.
Useless, baby. I did have something I wanted to touch on. That's why my notebook's down here from a novel I'm writing.
Okay.
I'll read a part of it for you, Spencer.
Ooh.
It's not going to be enticing, believe me, because the part I'm going to read is the part that, without any context, you're just like, what the fuck is he talking about here? But anyway, it actually just has to do with dialogue tags. Because I find the more I write, the less I follow Stephen King's advice of just always saying, said. So, fuck you, Biff said. Eat a dick, Biff said. You're stupid, Biff said. I sometimes want to throw in, fuck you, Biff shouted.
Yeah.
Fuck you, Biff snorted. So I'm going to crack this open because I have a good bit of, also because I was having fun with this one scene. Here's the preface for this scene. They, because my main character's mother passed away and he had to go to Ireland to where her house was and stuff, and because his mother lived in Ireland, and they had to bury her and all this. So it's like a week later, they're having a big family dinner at the house. It's extended family, so like the main character, probably doesn't know most of these people, like kind of knows them, but they're all very Irish, and I didn't go and try to write the Irish accent or anything like that because I'm just gonna fuck that up. So it's just implied, that they all have accents, but
That, or like even now at the stage that you're at, you don't have to deal with that now.
Yeah.
Just write it, and if you want to later on,
I can fuck with that later.
In the next pass.
Like, I have characters have their own ways of speaking, but and there are a couple characters that will also like speak some words of actual Irish. That's gonna be. I'm not even gonna try to read that on here because I still can't pronounce Irish very well. In the scene, like it's right after the dinner, and I'm not gonna read the one part, but where I was having fun was I almost took a bite out of Martino Cayen's Crane Achille, Graveyard Clay. It's because in that book, the whole book is just written where it's just a bunch of dead people in a graveyard, and they're all speaking at the same time.
Yeah,
so it's just
I
like,
remember you telling me about that.
So I took a bit of that where the one character, it's his girlfriend, is with him. She came with him, and she's at the dinner, and she's really out of place. She's just an American, has no Irish roots by any means. So she doesn't know anybody, and she's just like, what the fuck? So she's watching the conversations unfold. So I wrote it, so every conversation is just popping up at once. So she's just kind of like, oh, they were saying this, and then like it'll just break into mid-sentence in somebody else's conversation, break in to another one. And I might be able to give an example of that. Yeah. Ooh, this might actually be a little bit longer of a reading, but we have a whole episode. So
yeah.
that's fine. So, like, this is the scene where she's just watching some of the conversations, and this is just the first draft, folks, so a lot of this is going to get elaborated on in future drafts and maybe even cut. I don't even know if I want to keep this. So this is just, the way I've been writing lately, too, which has been helping, as we talked about in the past, is I'm just writing it. So I'm not too worried about if I use the right words, if I'm using the right dialogue tags or anything like that. I'm just fucking writing it how it comes to me, and then I'm going to do that later. So just to give you like an example, I used M dashes. Well, I mean, I wrote this by hand, but there'd be M dashes in the formatting. So when we're just jumping conversation to conversation, so like she's just looking around the room. So this one, like, I'm assuming, I don't think I actually use tags for who's speaking on these ones. She's just looking around. So just, anybody in the room, because most of the characters in this aren't going to be named because they're not important. For my money, Gravediggers has the finest pints in all of Dublin. Few of them grow anything worth a shit. Never married on account of that witch he calls a mother. And I says, Jesus, man, if that's a chip, I don't want to be a potato. And then it just goes on like a couple more like that. But it's just like literally cuts mid-sentence. So when I say it out loud, it just sounds like almost a run-on. Yeah. But there are individual breaks. So like that's fun because then I'm going to really ham that up when I do it because I can say some really offensive shit. Because it'd be out of context, so I could just be like, and her tits were sagging to her knee, and then it'd just go to like the next conversation about like a mother talking about breast milking or something. So you could I think you could have a lot of fun with adding humor to that and just be offensive, but it's not going to really be offensive because you don't know what the conversation is. So like the reader would be like, hey, am I supposed to be offensive? Is that a butt sex joke, or is he just you don't know what they're talking about? But going to the dialogue tags, I'm trying to see where this starts. Before we even go into that, what's your stance on dialogue tags? Are you just a straight said man, or
I try not to?
You've been doing what I do. You just go with what?
Yeah, I mean, I'll use said. I don't. I feel like though, if I use that a whole bunch,
it gets repetitive. That's what I always worry about. That's why I like to break it up.
Or what I've been trying to do is like if I'm having just like two people talk, I'm trying to really focus on the dialogue enough that you can tell that which one's talking, so I don't even try to use it as much.
Well, the way, and you'll get this when I read these passages, the way I've been writing, especially this story, is because I have a lot of dialogue. I'm breaking it up with action, so it'll be like bit of dialogue broken up with action, maybe a dialogue tag, more dialogue. So it's the same speaker. Because one thing I didn't do a lot in the past was having the old, you don't want to say lecture, but like somebody's talking, and then it actually breaks into multiple paragraphs where they're still talking. It just, not just... Because for a long time, I had a habit of just like, okay, he has one or two sentences of dialogue and then somebody else, and we go back and forth. Like, I'm trying to actually establish more of the way people speak, like how we're now. Like, I'm taking over the conversation for the moment. So,
because you're a dick.
Because I'm a fucking jerk. But I also came up with the idea for the podcast.
Fair. Fair.
Oh, yeah. And I'm the one who has to edit it also.
Yes, also fair.
Where we are now is, because this is a good bit after the dinner part, my main character's name are Oisin, and his girlfriend is Shay. Now, obviously, Oisin's very Irish. It's Oisin. So they got a couple beers. They're going to head outside because, there's too much going on. They just want to be alone. They're trying to get out, but they run in like right at the entrance of the house because it's like a small cottage house. There's a conversation going on, which I break right into the middle of that conversation like I did with the other ones. And then that's when like the main conversation going on that they're trying to, because I wanted to, what I was experimenting was like, how do you write a scene where a character's trying to just say get through a door and they're just like, hey, excuse me, but then like the people just not even paying attention to them. So I'll try to do that in a funny way. Standing on either side of the entrance door, Oshin's Uncle Sean and some cousin were in the middle of an animated argument. And then I broke right into the middle of their argument, so you don't know where the beginning was or where the conversation was leading necessarily. And who are we to decide the fate of the unborn? Only the Lord, Sean waved his hands with wild disregard to those around him, can choose which paths we take, whether it be life or death. Man has no right. Spittle shot from his seething mouth. No right. Oshin dodged a wayward hand. Excuse us, we're just... And what if it's the Lord's will for a woman to choose to terminate the pregnancy? The cousin asked Sean, neither of whom acknowledged Oshin's presence or bothered to move out of the way. You can't stand here and tell me God couldn't stop these women if he wanted. Pardon us, Oshin tried stepping through them, but was rebuffed by another errant hand flailing wildly about. Free will, Sean spat. God has bestowed upon us free will so we can choose to be virtuous. Choose. We just need to slide past real quick and what sense does that make, Sean? What sense? The cousin threw his hands up in disbelief. You talk about choice and virtue. Well, where's the virtue in a God who would allow us to make choices that, in your words, condemn us to eternity of everlasting fire? Repentance, Sean shouted. You must repent for your sins to avoid God's justified wrath. And see, like I've been using like shouted, like I'm not just saying said because that kind of takes away. So that's where I always get a little confused too, though, is you throw in the exclamation point. So I said repentance, exclamation point. Do I need the shouted? Because that's obviously shouting. Yeah. But I always find that it throws me off when it says like, what was the famous Dumbledore one? Somebody like a big exclamation point, and then Dumbledore said calmly. Like it just doesn't fit, I never like when they have exclamation point, but then it's just said. It just doesn't feel like. Yeah. I don't know if I'm being redundant when I do it with the shouted, but I like it.
Well, it gives it a little bit extra flair to it.
Yeah, that's what I think. You know what? I want excitement. I want excitement at work. I like that thing you sent me too. That guy's new mid-range between a period and exclamation point and new punctuation. It's shaped like a dick and balls.
Yeah.
I forget what he called that. Just need to squeeze by. If repentance absolves us of sin, the cousin was practically frothing at the mouth. Why does any of this matter? A woman could abort 100 babies and still go to heaven by your logic. Sorry, God, flushed another one down the shitter. 3 Hail Marys ought to cover it, right? It's absolutely ridiculous. Fellas, if you'd move for one... Now, why do you have to be crass? Sean softened his tone. There's no need for foul language. See, that's another way. Instead of doing an actual dialogue tag, Sean softened his tone.
Yeah.
So you still get who's speaking, and you can also change the way...
The tone.
Yeah, so I'm messing with that, too. Please, guys, we're just trying to... The only thing foul here is... Gentlemen! Oshin shouted, another shouted. So now I'm getting like, maybe I don't need too many shouteds, but how is he going to get his point across? Because it's got to be loud enough that they pay attention. So,
well, that could just be, you might need to put like a note in there or something that whenever you go to type it, like when he's like, gentlemen, it's big and bold. Like, what I mean? Like,
see, that'd be a formatting thing though. I don't know. That's another thing I worry about because I do have some different formatting things that are going to be in here. How do you go about, like, if you're going to actually get this book published, like a publisher be like, hey, by the way, this is text message, so we need like a special picture formatting for this. This needs to be centered because it's music lyrics, like different things like that. I feel like you just have to get the editor, I guess. But as never being published through a mainstream publisher, I don't know the abilities that they're, or like the means they're willing to stretch out to give you like a uniqueness. Because like House of Leaves is all fucking formatted weird, but that's like they went into it knowing that. So, gentlemen, Oshin shouted. Several heads turned his way. Please. He made a separating motion with his hands. Let us through. Oshin, my boy, Sean said in surprise. I didn't see you there. So sorry. He took a step back from in front of the door. You remember Paul, don't you? He pointed to the cousin. He's Sarah's boy. Some dinner, eh? Paul took a step back as well. Your uncle... See, and that's another good way. So you just show the action of Paul stepping back. You don't have to say Paul said. I think that's a very effective way of showing who's talking without having to say they're talking. And I definitely probably need to do that more in my work. Is just, show the person speaking through their actions versus just saying, Paul said. But anyway, some dinner, eh? Paul took a step back as well. Your uncle and I were just having us a friendly debate. Say, what are your thoughts on... Now, Sean interjected. Ocean got plenty on his mind already without our heaping on more. He looked relieved that the conversation had been broken up. Unless you want to join in, he said reluctantly. Ocean gave a tight-lipped smile and a nod. Some other time. He placed his hand on the small shade's back and guided her between the two men to the outside. Sean bowed slightly in a show of respect while Paul briefly waved with his fingertips. I guess I could finish this because I'm almost caught up to where I am. As they walked into the damp night air, Paul's voice rumbled back to life like the engine of a long-sitting lawn tractor. The door shut right as he was picking up momentum. One shouldn't need the threat of eternal hellfire to be a good... On the cottage porch sat a shrunken old man. He wasn't a member of the family, but Oisin recognized him as Grandma Nora's good friend, Gus O'Malley. Old Gus was hard of hearing and going blind, so Oisin guided Shay past him. I used guided too many times in this now. Also, I don't like the whole, small the back, like pushing a girl around. Like in that situation, yeah, but like the following situation, maybe not so much. Old Gus was hard of hearing and going blind, so Oisin guided Shay past him and vowed to explain the situation once they were alone. Gus, Oisin said loudly so the old man might hear, but the greeting in passing didn't find its mark, or at least it seemed as Gus hummed softly to himself the words of an Irish folk song, paying no heed to the world going on around him. And then I have a folk song and fucking more stuff. I feel like now I have your opinion on this, but personally, I feel like I'm doing a fairly good job of keeping the dialogue tags unique while also sticking to, just like the traditional said when needed. Because like the beginning, like most of the scenes in my book up till that point aren't as animated. It's usually said, but also I throw in a lot of action that shows who's speaking without having to say anything at all.
Yeah, it seemed pretty balanced. I like the more technique of like the showing action, who is talking without having to always say, said, shouted, yelled, explained, Well,
a lot of times when I read books where the dialogue tags are really heavy-handed, even if it's just said, but it's just like a lot of every other sentence, Paul said, John said, it's like, all right, come on. Like it just, I don't know about you, but I just kind of do like when I was reading the fucking Oblivion by David Foster Wallace, I just zoned out and then I get to the end of the page. I'm like, I didn't even read that. Did I read that? I don't even remember. But it's like, I've just been having a lot of fun with this book. And like, that's the only part of the story that's probably going to have like any like theology talk, but because it's based in like this part is based in Ireland. The Sean character, while it's not explicitly stated that he's a priest, he's very priest-like because he gives like because the guy's mother died, so and I think that's his brother or her brother, so he gives like a speech and stuff like that. And Irish people are at least stereotypically very Catholic.
Yeah,
as far as I know,
they're like a little bit more not more religious, but they probably have
they have a history of being very Catholic, and then even like modern Irish people are still pretty religious. And the topic of abortion, if we had, because I want to implement a little bit of progressive dialogue when in regards to like modern Irish people, which would have been the Paul character, he would have been younger. And the way I wrote it, you don't even actually know what side he's on. He's just kind of questioning like the will of God or the supposed will, or even more, deeply, he's questioning the actual Catholicism, like Sean's opinion. Oh, you're gonna go eternal hellfire, like just how it doesn't make sense to some people.
The best part of something like that, like you said, you don't even really know. He could just be playing
devil's advocate
and just like knowing that it's gonna get a rise out of the other guy. So he's just
when Oisin broke up their conversation finally, he said you saw how they both just got really nice, and it's like hey, like they take it very seriously, but then they're not. Because it's just like kind of the Irish way. It's just everything's very serious until it's not. Like, you're still just...
It's 110%.
Yeah.
Or nothing.
Or nothing. Like, I have a lot of... like, obviously, my American scenes, because up till this point, all this whole story just takes place in, like, Pennsylvania. I definitely wrote those those dialogue scenes and stuff would be more realistic to as how Americans speak versus how... I don't know how Irish slang is. Like, I could look up stuff, but I don't have friends who are actually from Ireland, so I can't say, hey, would this be something you guys actually say?
But does this sound right? Like,
yeah. So I try not to use too much slang, and like I don't have a lot of conversations at that dinner scene.
You want to know like my like I guess not it's not really Irish, but like English, like European slang. You want to know what I get? Whatever Guy Ritchie puts in his movies.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe you just get like Brad Pitt's the pikey.
Yeah.
Like, that's your fucking close to as Irish as you might get in your dialogue, just nonsense. But it's a kid fan. Like,
oh, imagine seeing the scripts for that. That has to be like I hope that was all scripted.
Mm-hmm.
And he had to like learn those lines.
I think he just made up a lot of the shit. But I don't think he's learning anything from like I don't know how you'd memorize that. But like scenes like that though, I feel like I probably won't have to edit that too hard, which is nice. The layout, yeah, like I don't know how all that's gonna the conversations, like how I'm gonna actually have them placed and stuff like that. Because like I said, I'm just writing, just as it comes to me. I would like to keep that scene because I do like that scene, just how it turned out, and I just wrote that real quick. But I think it's fun. What I didn't read here was the part with the old man. He's singing the Irish folk song to himself. I decided, which I probably should have did earlier on because I'm like 6-7 chapters in, I decided that I wanted to use because it's called suicide songs. I think we discussed this on here before. It's going to be like one of the main things is like a music box that can make you kill yourself. And it's about like how music affects people. So I was going to use like music lyrics as transitions. Not most of them probably I'll just make up, or like that one is just like a traditional Irish song. It's like from fucking 1400s or something. You don't have to have licensing for that because I don't want to get like a Nicholas Obergon. He told me that Blue Light Yokohama, when it got published in like Japan or something, because it was an actual song someone wrote, he had to like pay all this money to use it. And he's like, oh goddamn, because copyright laws are different around the world. So I'm not going to use any real songs that have copyrights. Folk songs you can use all you want because they're just it's like nursery rhymes. Nobody owns them. So have you been messing around with like any kind of different techniques with your dialogue, or even just the way you let scenes unfold?
What I'm working on? It's very like at this point, it's almost kind of set up like almost like boss fights. Like there's like these main 5 people in this group that this guy has to go through. So I'm kind of like using like each chapter as like him inadvertently interacting with these people and like how he gets out of like that situation and stuff like that. But what I've noticed is more while I'm working on the story of weird just coming up with things out of nowhere, like of like kind of like starting a chapter. It's like, all right, I have an idea what this is, and then by the end of the chapter, like I did not know what that was before starting that chapter. I'm not really doing anything like with the story that I'm working on. It's not any weirdness to it really. I mean, it's very kind of straightforward. It's science fiction in a way that only just because it's set like in the near future, but like not even like hundreds of years. It's more like not even like within like a person's lifespan, like not even like a full 100 years. So it's just like that kind of stuff. I haven't really done anything recently to where I would have to come up with like a weird or kind of play around with a way to kind of tell a certain story or scene, because there's no like I said, it's kind of very straightforward and more kind of actiony, but not like 80s movie action, but there's each chapter like up the ante a little bit there, where it's like, so when you get to the end, it's like, wow, this crazy shit's going on, but like when you go back, it's like, well, it's slowly been building. It's just not out of nowhere, It
sounds like you're ramping it up like an RPG where the characters progress as the story goes on. So like,
kinda, yeah.
So if you have,
yeah, because my character from the beginning of the story to where he's going to end up from the end of the story are going to be very different people.
Yeah, so if you had your character at the beginning jump straight to the end, he would not be able to handle the situation.
No.
But every situation he encounters up till that helps him build up, so he's just equipped enough to handle that, like an RPG. Just equipped enough to handle that situation.
And not even really, because still like a lot of the times I have the way he gets out is just from like dumb luck or just barely surviving or like he shouldn't have survived but he did somehow, like just by the skin of his teeth.
Excellent. Well, with my story, and I had the idea just before I even, started writing, is I wanted to not necessarily be experimental, but I wanted to tell a story. Like I wanted to have it unravel where each chapter kind of has a unique feel to it. So it's not just gonna, like what I was saying, I was messing around with like the dialogue and how it unfolds in that. And I also had an idea, which I think I'm gonna implement later, because it might have came out a little bit during that reading, like you probably didn't notice, but I'm gonna do like I think a chapter where it's gonna be very heavy alliteration. Maybe it's a short chapter. Things unlike your story that ramps up, mine just goes to crazy town almost all at once.
Yeah.
So think of the hike.
There's a moment
where it's like something's not right, and then it just goes to fucking crazy town.
Yeah.
So my story's gonna kind of do that. It's gonna go to crazy town. Up to this point, everything like you're reading it. So 6 chapters in, you're reading the story, just thinking, oh, this is like I have weird elements, obviously, to hint that's gonna be going to crazy town. Almost like a Murakami story where it's like that dwarf character's unusual.
Like the edges are frayed, but it's quite like out of focus. You don't quite notice
but
it
there's
yet.
still, you're in the real world. But then eventually you go into Alice in Wonderland. Like you go into the fucking weirdness. And then once I get there, I'm going to really start going heavy. Like with the writing, I want it to mirror the weirdness of like what's happening. So, one chapter might just be written in all alliteration. Because you're like, what the fuck? Like, because I've been hinting at that the whole story so far up to that, where I have part, like I said in that, I have parts where some of the characters who might be more involved in like the craziness, the one character, it was only him where the alliteration was in either his movements or even in some of his phrasing of the things. And it might have even been before that part. But later, I'll have a character, maybe, if it's not the whole chapter, maybe just one character, everything that involves just that one character is alliteration. So it'd be like really weird. Maybe like one chapter would be like a play on just like weird sound effects or something, almost comic book style. Like everything's just like amplified for whatever reason. And it depends on which part of this weird universe that they're going to be in too, that I'm creating. But I think that makes for a more fun read too for the reader, is if every chapter gives you something new to focus on, but you do have to do it in a way where it's not completely overt. So even like the alliteration idea, it wouldn't just be animals, ailing, apples. Like it would be like, it would start off slow in the chapter, maybe ease into it, and then all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, why is it all this whole fucking paragraph starts with B's? Like every letter like starts with a C on this. Like you throw it in there. Like you were talking about your story progressing, like it would just be that individual idea progressing until the point where it's like the reader's like, wait, what the fuck? And I think that'd be a fun way to tell stories is, probably, I haven't read it, but like James Joyce's Ulysses, I think does things like that where he has chapters where it's like all fucking wonky and like everything's different. Like I might be making this up, but I think there's maybe a chapter where you just ask questions the whole chapter. Everything's just a question.
I'll look forward to hearing your opinion on that once you start that stuff.
Yeah,
because there's a DC character called Egan. He's like a demon, and he speaks in rhymes. Which is this is cool.
Until you have to write.
But I've heard multiple writers like, I really love this character, but I don't ever use him because the whole speaking in rhymes thing is a pain in the ass.
I was actually thinking of having a character that spoke in rhymes, and just for that exact reason, I was like, I don't know if I want that. I'm not going to go so hard as to be like an Alan Moore where you have a fucking chapter that's just unreadable like Finnegan's Wake, because I think he has a chapter that's supposed to be an homage to Finnegan's Wake, so it's just like a bunch of made-up words and nonsense. Like, I'm not going to go that far, but I do want to experiment more. And I bought a notebook that I'm just going to do experimental writing in, just to like flesh out some of these ideas before I implement them into my novel, or even, maybe just for another work in the future. Yeah. Just, there's always the old try to write a novel, which a couple novels have been written this way without the letter E.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck? But then you get really, really weird sentences. Like, I forget, one was like the guy was describing a cake. Like, he couldn't just say cake because it has an E in it. So he had to like use this really convoluted way to say cake. It was ridiculous. But like, that could be fun. Like, just the challenge would be fun. Obviously, I'm not going to expect my first book to ever get published if it was written like that.
Right.
Fucking weirdness, or a gimmick. But
Hey, that's something you're gonna do whenever you've got like kind of a fan base and you've got like a library behind you, and it's like, you know what, guys, I want to do a fuck around one and just see what happens.
Yeah. The main reason I'm doing it is just because I think it's a lot of fun, just like experimenting with like the writing styles and stuff, and the chapters like being slightly different. But another reason is I think it's gonna help my book stand out, because how many books you read where it's A to Z story, character arc is like the characters have their normal arcs, the hero's journey. But the writing itself doesn't have to be that straightforward. It can have those same things, story can still go linear A to Z. You can still have the character growth and the hero's journey, all that stuff. But the actual writing could be fun and different. It doesn't have to just be the same kind of writing everyone implements, and then he was walking down the street and he picked up the garbage, and then he found a used condom on his shoe, and then he saw a hooker in the alley running for her life, and he's like, who did that condom belong to? And it's like, you could do fun stuff with that condom. Maybe write the whole story from the perspective of the used condom. Not the whole story, the whole chapter, or just the whole scene. I don't know. So anyway, that's the DPW podcast, I suppose. So if you folks want to check out our
Caleb
work,
said,
yeah, I forgot we were talking about dialogue tags. That was the whole point of this. So if you want to check out our work and our dialogue tags and yell at me for not using said enough in lieu of other fucking tags like shouted and spooged and spittled and stuttered, all S's for some reason, you can go to drunkenpenwriting.com. Spewed. That's a good one. I'm going to use that. Spewed. That's also a good way, like, because I use like spittle in there and frothing at the mouth and stuff, and those weren't necessarily spittle could have been used with the dialogue tag, but frothing at the mouth wasn't. But spewed is great because like that shows like he's really like spewing it out. He's fucking barfing it out at you, whatever he's saying. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Twitter's at Drunk Pen Writing. The other ones are at Drunken Pen Writing. And if you want to tell me anything about the excerpt I read, you can reach out at just fucking find us. You know where to find us. Go to the contact page.
We don't go nowhere.
Yeah, I was gonna give out my personal. I don't know. Fuck it. I don't want to give out my personal email or my personal Twitter. You know why?
Why?
Because I barely use them. Well, I use the email, but not the Twitter. So anyway, thank you for listening, and we will check you next time. Spew, spew, spew.